Good morning, everybody, and happy Saturday. It's Rita Smith here to do some positively inspired cooking with you. And today we are going to chop celery and talk a little bit about what makes celery unique. It has a very unique flavor that cannot be replaced really in any other way in soups and stews and stocks and sauces. And it has when it's nice and fresh and crispy, it has a great crunchy texture, which kind of sometimes can replace potato chips if you need something crunchy. The other thing that I love about celery is not one single piece of this bunch of celery is going to go to waste. I'm going to use every single bit of it. So I don't even have my compost bucket out because I'm going to put this instead in my freezer bag. I'm going to cut it open at the bottom. Check to see if I see any dirt inside. I do not. Sometimes when you cut open a bunch of celery, you'll see that as it's growing, it's picked up dirt with every layer, and there's a little bit of dirt that you need to deal with in washing it. I'll re-wash this again before I set about using it, but this is a pretty clean looking bunch of celery. So now here and here I have the bottom end of the celery and the celery tops, the leaves as well. The celery hearts, which are very furry and not too many people are going to want to actually eat those. Well, nobody really wants to eat those, but they're fantastic for soup. They bring a strong celery flavor to soup, and since you're going to throw it away anyway, here's what I do, is I keep a freezer bag, a big Ziploc bag in my freezer, and whenever I chop celery or onions, I put in cilantro ends, I put in the green, very dark green part of a leek, which you're not going to eat, but which is awesome in soup. So whenever I'm chopping with vegetables like those, and especially celery, I keep I reserve the parts that normally you might think to throw away, and I put them in the freezer. And one day when I come across some bones, a ham bone, or there's some beef bones that I can grab at the St. Lawrence Market, and I'm making stock, I just pull out of the freezer everything that I've been collecting over a week or two or three, however long it's going to be in there. I make soup fairly often. And into the pot with the bones goes this bag of leftover stuff, and it adds flavor to the broth. It adds flavor, it adds vitamins, it adds a kind of a depth to the flavor of the broth that you're going to put in your soup. You can't really get it any other way. It's a much stronger flavor than actually comes in the celery itself. So I encourage you, actually the tops of the celery can go into that bag too. I encourage you not to throw away anything from a bunch of celery, but instead reserve it. Onion skins, it's an old trick that cooks use and that people used to actually use to dye Easter eggs. Onion skins add a beautiful golden tone to broth, which is why people use them to dye yellow Easter eggs. So nothing from the celery and nothing from the onion needs to go to waste. It can all go in the freezer for the next time that you are making stock. Okay, so I did give that celery a second rinse. I spotted a few flecks of dirt and wanted to make sure that it was perfectly clean. So I gave it a good rinse under cold water. And we're going to start on a couple of different ways you can cut celery. You can just cut it in thirds. If you're packing it for your lunch, if you're going to eat it, more dirt. If you're going to eat it with dip, celery is a natural scoop. And there's been more than one occasion when I've been at a stand-up dinner, salad bar, banquet hall, or somewhere where there was vegetables and dip, but no spoon to get any dip, in a healthy way from the bowl to my plate. A piece of celery is a natural scoop. Check it out. So you can make it smaller, thinner if you like. Cut it into little sticks for your lunch bag or for a dipping tray if you're going to have guests out and you're serving vegetables and dip. It's nice to have enough vegetables to get your fingers around so that your fingers don't end up in the dip. And then you can, if you are chopping it for soups or stews, you can just dice it. You can just dice it so it's small enough to fit on a spoon, which is kind of the prerequisite for soup. You don't serve soup with a knife. So you want it to be small enough that it'll fit on a spoon, but not so small that it disappears into your recipe. You can, for stir fries, you can just cut it into a little bit of a bigger piece. That makes it possible for you to pick it up with the chopsticks. And then there are some occasions when you, just like what I did with the carrots, when you want to make your celery look a little bit fancier, you can cut it on the diagonal, so it gives it a bit of a fancier look. And oftentimes, I just had takeout Chinese last night, and I actually smiled when I saw that the restaurant had taken the time to cut the celery on the diagonal. Of course, Eddie chops a lot faster than I do, that's for sure. But and look at that, it looks pretty. Doesn't that look pretty for your soup or your stir fry or your oriental dish? So you can cut it into sticks. You can dice it into very small pieces to throw into soup or stew. You can leave it into somewhat bigger pieces if you're going to cut it, put it into a stir fry or some other kind of recipe where you actually want to see what it is. It'll keep in the fridge for about 4 or 5 days. Once you've cleaned it and washed it, it's going to get limp after that, bouncy. You don't want that. But it is a fantastic flavor, a fantastic texture. It is not expensive. It's available all year, everywhere, and not one single piece of it needs to go to waste. Everything that you chop off, put it in your freezer bag for stock, and you will have a fantastic, deep, rich, flavorful soup stock at no extra cost. You don't have to go out and buy celery for your broth making. Just don't throw anything away when you're using it for the fancier things where you need the prettier parts. So fantastic, celery. Enjoy yourself in the kitchen. Be confident, try lots of different things, and have a fantastic Saturday.